on? Blossom is back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives, and it's been a while, another episode of What Can You Get From That Pack. Now I think we're going to have back-to-back episodes because tomorrow we're going to be reviewing the pack that you need to open to get the Koenigsegg Yamera, baby. But today I want to talk about the difficult to predict carbon fiber pack. This is the carbon fiber pack coming out from the difficult to predict event going on right now. Now the event itself isn't anything too special. It's your regular ceramic pack event for the top 10. But I find this pack quite peculiar. It is 2015 to 2019, non-prize cars obviously, USA and France. And what makes this pack so interesting are the legendaries, especially the American ones. There are 4 American legendaries you can get. You can get the best 4-wheel drive American car in the game, which is the Acura. Then you can get the best American medium ground clearance car in the game, which is the Ts-V. Obviously when I say the best, I exclude prize cars. You can get the best twisty American car in the game, which is the Viper ACR Hollywood, and you can get the best all-round legendary for the USA in the game, which is the Ford GT. And on top of that, you got a bunch of Hellcats, you got the Bugatti Chiron, and you have the Pujo 308. So I was like, you know what? This is a pack worthy of being reviewed because I might even open it myself. But before we get into that, special announcement. We are 100 subs away from 9,000 subscribers. Let's hit 10K this year, but also let's hit 9K as soon as possible. So if you're watching right now, you like the content, you want to get help with top drives, hit that red button, please. Not the button that sends the nukes. No, not that one, but the subscribe button. Anyway, let's get into it. You guys know how I rank my stuff. We got Dirk Kaiser, best of the best, right? Daily Driver, these are really good cars. We have Frequent Provider, these are the average or the bang average ones. Then we have Pernicious Ulcer, and of course the mainstay. We see this in basically almost every tier maker video. Hot, say it with me, garbage. Okay, so let's get into it. The first one is the Cadillac Esv. Oi, I don't know. Okay, so the Cadillac Esv has 55 MRA and it is very, very heavy. Where would I put it? Hot garbage. So we're not starting off too strong, but you know, we're gonna equalize it because the Colorado ZR2 is their Kaiser. The Colorado ZR2 is, you know, if you watch the Ultra Rare video, you would know that this is one of the best, top 7, right? One of the best Ultra Rares in the game. It beats the Lancia 037 on some track sets. It is the best Ultra Rare off-roader 4-wheel drive. Also, it handles very well, out-handling some of its epics that are in its niche, which is American pickups, basically. And then you have the Cadillac Esv on the other end of the spectrum. I think that's hot garbage because the only thing the Cadillac Esv provides is that it's supposed to be like a dragster, but it loses to the Trailblazer everywhere. It's not even American Dream, so it is going to be playing in the same, you know, ball pit with the Trailblazer SS, which also is American Dream. So yeah, the Cadillac Esv, hot garbage. The 060 is low, not as low as the Trailblazer. Handling is better than the Trailblazer, but not as good as any other SUV in its category. So moving on is Tahoe. I love this car. That being said though, it's also hot garbage. Look, man, GM knows how to make SUVs. I think that they make amazing SUVs. When you see them chilling on 5th Avenue in New York, they look sexy that way. But when it comes to top drives, GM SUVs, they don't really seem, well, yeah, they don't really seem to hit the mark. I was about to say, you know, the Colorado is GM, but that isn't an SUV now, is it? So yeah, the Tahoe and the Escalade ESV, both of them are hot garbage. Very sad. Next up is the Dodge Challenger SRT 392. Now this is going to be a frequent provider. It's a good dragster, and it is one of the best dragsters that actually come with traction control and ABS. When you think about it, cars like the TVR Tamora, the Charger 3, the Roof BTR, they either lack either or traction control and ABS. The Scat pack and the SRT 392 brings both of that to the table. So when it comes to like 0 to 100 to 0 in the rain, or you know, a quarter mile in the rain, or 0 to 100 to 0, well actually really anything that includes braking, right, because ABS, it is actually a pretty useful car. But outside of that, it handles quite well as well. It doesn't have that, you know, stereotypical dragster handling, which is like 75 handling or 72 or anything around those numbers. 82 is respectable. If you get this thing 233, it's going to be able to hit 91 handling or 90 handling. So around and over 90, which is actually very good for a car that you consider to be a dragster. High top speed, a low 0 to 60, but then again, it's not really the best in any track set. So because of that, it's just average frequent provider for me. Next one is the Dodge Charger Daytona. Now the Dodge Charger Daytona, I'm going to put in a daily driver because it is medium. It handles well as well. It gets 89 handling when you get it 223. Also, it's medium ground clearance and it's a saloon. On top of that, it also did get an MRA boost. So back in the day, I think it was like 440, 50, around that range. But now the Dodge Charger Daytona has an MRA of 71.21. It's not the best, not even good, but it's okay. And, you know, you take that MRA with, you know, the decent handling that it provides, the saloon niche, and the medium ground clearance, and the fact that it's American. There are not a lot of medium ground clearance American saloons that has performance tires like this, the other Charger SRT8, and the Pontiac GTO. So because of that, I do get a lot of use out of the Daytona. I'm going to put it under daily driver. Next one is the Ds7 Crossback. Now that is going to be a pernicious ulcer. It has four-wheel drive, it has standard tires, and it has, you know, over low ground clearance. I say that because I can't remember if it has medium or high. That being said though, it doesn't handle. So, you know, you need that combination of four-wheel drive, standard tires, and handling for a car to be really good. If the Ds7 had like a worse 0 to 60, so instead of 6.4, it was 8.4, but the handling was 78 instead of 68, oh my goodness, it would be Der Kaiser. But unfortunately, low 0 to 60 or a lower 0 to 60 in this niche isn't saying much for, you know, the four-wheel drive standard tire category. It's all about handling, and that car doesn't handle. So it's a pernicious ulcer. It's not hot garbage because it still is four-wheel drive and standard tires. So that still is a very useful niche in itself. Moving on now is the Ford Edge Sport. Quite disappointing, I would say, the Ford Edge Sport. So now I want to talk about the Challenger for a second. The Challenger has 77 MRA, 61 MR in the Ford Edge Sport. When this car was first introduced into the game, everyone thought that the Ford Edge Sport was going to be amazing. It was going to be a game changer. You know what I mean? It handled pretty well, had a low 0 to 60, but at the end of the day, the Ford Edge Sport turned out to be a little bit of a disappointment. It seems to underachieve. It's like the opposite of a sleeper. And the fact that it actually isn't high ground clearance is a hindrance to it because you cannot deploy it on the motocross track, and you feel kind of wary when you want to put it on the hill climb as well. So the Ford Edge Sport, it's a bit of a hybrid, but I kind of feel like if it just had a little more handling, it would be a much better car. But unfortunately, 75 isn't enough. It's not horrible by any means. It still has a very good 0 to 60 for its niche, four-wheel drive all surface tires. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give it an average rank, but not as good as a lot of people, including myself, thought it would be. Next is the Ford Expedition Platinum. Now, the Ford Expedition Platinum is basically the same thing to the Cadillac Esv. The only reason why the Ford isn't hot garbage is because it has the American Frontier tag. So it can be the American SUV dragster that you need in an American Frontier event where you cannot use the Trailblazer. Like I said, for the Cadillac Esv, it doesn't have any of those special tags. It's going to be in the same category as the Trailblazer, the Chevrolet Trailblazer. So the only place where this Cadillac would shine would be just in Cadillac drag off-road events. But at least for the Ford, it would shine in the Ford off-road events for drag, and also the American ones, especially if it's lower RQ and you can't use the Dodge Durango. Moving on is the Ford Mustang 2.3. That's going to be a frequent provider. I think that this is one of the best RQ50s in the game. It is a nice little hybrid that handles well. It has an okay 0 to 60, and the MRA isn't the best thing in the world. It's 64.56. In fact, that's pretty bad. But for an RQ50, I feel like this is a car that you are getting a lot of bargain in its stock stats for its RQ. Moving on is the Ford Mustang GT, and once again, it's also a very average car. It has the same handling as the 2.3, a much lower 0 to 60, however, and much better MRA. The 2.3 has 64 MRA, and the Ford Mustang GT has 81.37, which is, you know, a huge increase. Top speed is a little higher. It's just a slightly better version, and I do believe that it provides the same amount of value for 10 RQ more over the 2.3, so both of them are very average cars. Shout out when the Ford Mustang used to be epic. Oh my goodness. Alright, moving on is the Ford Taurus Show. Again, it's a very average car, right? It has a low 0 to 60, it has four-wheel drive, and it is medium. And I do believe that the MRA is around 70, yep, 70.67, so it's not good. It's not bad. It's slightly under average or around that benchmark. But then again, it's a very average car. It has its niches. It's medium. It's four-wheel drive. It is a saloon. Maybe one thing I should have added on to the Charger, saying that there were not a lot of cars in this niche, is also rear-wheel drive. So rear-wheel drive, this is four-wheel drive, because they're both saloon and they're both medium at the end of the day. But moving on now is the GMC Sierra All-Terrain X. Ooh, that's gonna be a little controversial, isn't it? Putting it in pernicious ulcer. The only reason it isn't hot garbage is because it has four-wheel drive and off-road. But let me ask you this. Where do you actually use the GMC Sierra All-Terrain? When it comes to super twisty stuff, you're gonna use the Colorado every day of the week. And when it comes to drag stuff, you're gonna use the Trailblazer any day of the week. Now, I know you can say, oh, but it's a good hill climb car. Well, here's the thing. because of yacht, a lot of people are gonna have that 1500 Rebel, the Ram, and the Ram beats the Sierra, at least on Sand Hill Climb, because I tested this yesterday with So Fanny, so shout out. But I do believe that the Rebel is going to beat the Sierra in most cases. So unfortunately, the GMC Sierra is going to be pernicious ulcer in my opinion. Moving on now is the Pujo 208 GTI, also pernicious ulcer. You're not getting as much, there's better cars in this niche, right? The moment when I think of medium ground clearance RQ50, I think of the, the JPT, Nissan Pulsar. So this is still very light. The 208 is still very light, handles well, it's medium, so it's definitely not hot garbage, but it's definitely not the first car that's going to come to my mind, so that's going to be a pernicious ulcer. The next one is the Pujo 308 GTI. That's also going to be pernicious ulcer, and I think that's also going to be a controversial pick, because people are going to be like, oh wait, the Pujo 308 GTI is actually pretty good on the drags, like I use this on the drags. The thing is, right, the Pujo 308 GTI, yeah, it's actually pretty decent on the drags. It's actually a car so decent where you want a 33 to it, because the handling is also really bad. When you think about it, 5 RQ more than the Pujo 208, it actually handles less by 2 points. So yeah, that is a dragster, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a car that you want to use in the 1 mile, because this isn't the French car that I want to use on a quarter mile or a half mile either. I would use the Renault Desire. Now I know the Renault Desire has no 0 to 6, has no MRA and no top speed, but the 0 to 60 is way lower, and it still beats the 308. Because yes, the 308 has decent MRA, but it's like decent MRA in a relative sense, like a JPT with Subarus. It's not amazing. It's not like 90. It's not like Auto Delta good. It's just better than its competition. It's kind of like, you know, that one Subaru that I talk about all the time, the Hell Sushi as I call it, the 63 RQ. Like, that's good. It has good MRA, 76, in its competition against other Subarus. It's the same thing that goes with the Pujo. It has good MRA around its competition, but in the grand scale of things, it's still not that impressive. And the 0 to 60 on the 308 is very weak at the same time. So like I said, quarter mile, half mile, I still use Desire. So at the end of the day, what gives for the 308? Hatchback drag events, perhaps? That's it. That's it. It's not even a great twisty car. It's medium, but it doesn't handle. I would rather use the 208. So pernicious ulcer. It has some pedigree to it, so it's not hot garbage, but it's definitely not anything higher than pernicious ulcer in my opinion. Moving on, Renault Sport. This one I would say is also pernicious ulcer. 0 to 60 is very weak, but the handling is all right. So all the French cars, they're gonna go under that category. Then we have the Renault Sport Clio RS 1.6. Why the hell does this car have the motorsport tag? It's one of those outliers. I just don't like it. But at the end of the day, all these French cars, they're not the worst thing in the world, but they're not good. So they're all going to be pernicious ulcer. Okay, now we're going to have a change of pace because we've got the Megane, okay? The Megane is their Kaiser. Thank you Siri. The Megane is definitely their Kaiser. We've talked about this. It's one of the best Ultra RS in the game. The next one is the Megane 4 RS, and I think that's going to be daily driver because it's low ground clearance, but 87 handling is really freaking good for 51 MRA and MRA. I think it has actually 51 MRA around that range, but for 51 RQ as well. And the 0 to 60 is low. I mean, I would say for 51 RQ, that is actually a respectable 0 to 60. And amazing handling. That's a great car. I would give it daily driver, but the Renault Sport slightly edges it out because it also has medium ground clearance and one of the best. It's just so incredibly useful and better handling. So that's going to be their Kaiser. So moving on now to epics. So we start off with the Acura MDX. Frequent provider, I would say. It's alright. It handles well for an SUV. So that's the main plus about the RDX. Now I'm trying to find the MRA here. 52.94 on the MDX. Not very good, but it is more of a twisty car. Now, the next one we want to talk about is the Acura Rdx. Now, that is hot garbage. That has no handling, and the MRA on this, I think it's actually, like, okay for an SUV. Yeah, I mean, no, it's not. It's not. 60. It's 60. Which is, higher than a lot, but I would say it's among the best. When it comes to good SUV MRA, I'm looking for 75 to 80 plus. So, yeah, Acura Rdx, absolutely hot garbage. Next one is the RLX. This one, I'm also going to give it frequent provider. It handles quite well. It has four-wheel drive. It is standard tires. It is medium ground clearance. It is a saloon. The 0 to 60 is alright. It's a very average car. Just a worse version of the Cadillac Ct6, which is going to be their Kaiser. The Cadillac Ct6, I mean, this is probably the best American standard tire car in the game. It's a bit of a hybrid in some sense. It handles well, has good MRA. 71 MRA for a four-wheel drive standard tire saloon is actually really impressive. 0 to 60 is okay, but the main thing is the MRA and the handling and the fact that it's medium and the fact that it's four-wheel drive and standard in the saloon. It's a really beautiful car just to top it all off. So definitely their Kaiser. Next one is the Cadillac Cts-V V Sport. Now, The MRA on the V Sport, if I do believe so, I do have Top Drives Club open, but it's on my phone. So if you see me, you know, if I'm constantly looking down, you know why. 75 MRA. Okay, that is not good at all. The stats aren't that amazing. The 0 to 60 is okay for 67 RQ, but the handling is trash. I get that it's medium, so there's a little bit of, you know, positives to it. So it's not going to be hot garbage, but I don't think it's a good car. Pernicious ulcer. Next one is the Cadillac Xt5. The Cadillac Xt5 is a frequent provider. Why? Because for 66 RQ, you're getting 77 handling. That is actually really impressive. This used to be one of my favorite ultra rares to use because it was ultra rare back in the day in 2017. I had 2 of the max and I absolutely loved it. 85 handling for a 66 RQ SUV. That is actually really impressive. I will take that. It is an average car, in my opinion. Moving on is the Chevrolet Camaro SS. That, once again, nothing too special about it, I would say. It's quite average for 65 RQ, 4.32 to 60, 85 handling. And finally, just to wrap it all up, it has 74 MRA. Not much to say about it. It's a pretty average car. And it's the same thing with the Camaro. A lot of these cars are going to be very average, aren't they, right? I feel like we're just working down the pecking order here of Camaros. All these Camaros are average. The Camaros in Top Drives are just average. They all, you know, handle okay for their RQ. They all have, you know, good 0 to 60s for their RQ. And they all have decent MRA for their RQ. All I would say is that Camaros are very average. Not amazing cars in Top Drives. They're not bad either. You can get your use out of them. So all the Camaros are going to end up being frequent providers. Now, moving on is the Grand Sport. The Grand Sport is going to be daily driver. You're getting 99 handling out of this and a very low 0 to 60. On top of that, it also has 77 MRA, which is not bad. It's not 85 like the Lingenfelter, but 77 isn't bad. It's a twisty car. And the handling on this is absolutely insane, so I would definitely give it daily driver. Moving on is the Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Z51. Now, this one is also going to be a daily driver in my opinion. 80 MRA, 88 handling, sub 4 seconds 0 to 60, and it's 75 RQ. And I think that it would be overrated if it was 77 or 76, but 75 is a good place to put both the Corvette Stingray and the Grand Sport. So both of them are going to be daily drivers in my opinion. Moving on is the Citroen CX Experience. That is going to be pernicious ulcer. Once again, it's like the DS, right? 4-wheel drive, standard tires, medium ground clearance, but it needs to handle, and it doesn't handle, so unfortunately, it is going to be pernicious ulcer. Moving on is the RT Scat Pack. That is going to be hot garbage. I'm sorry, but this is a car that I used to have in duplicates. I fused one away, and I'm keeping one for the Dodge collection, and I have to be honest, man, the Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack is really bad. It has no MRA for a Dodge. That's like the main like red flag right there. The MRA on this is 77.63. For a Dodge, that's not good. For any average car, that would be pretty alright. But for a Dodge, there are different expectations. 77 isn't good enough. Handling was bad. 0 to 60 isn't that good. Top speed is high, but like I said, the MRA isn't that good, so it's not going to hit that. So unfortunately, hot garbage. Next up is the Srt Hellcat. Average, right? Great MRA, low 0 to 60, high top speed, it's a through and through dragster. Then you have the slightly better version, the wide body, daily driver, because it's just a slightly better version of the Hellcat. Then you have the Scat Pack Charger, which is a pernicious ulcer, because it's a slightly better version of the Challenger Scat Pack. And then moving on, we have the Srt Charger Hellcat. So as you can see, there's a nice little hierarchy here. We have the Challenger Scat Pack, the Charger Scat Pack, the Challenger Hellcat wide body, and then the Charger Hellcat to top all of it off. The Charger is one of the best epics in the game. It has, let's see the MRA over this, I think it is in the 90s. Yep, 90, straight up 90.67, 3.40 to 60, super high top speed, saloon, one of the best epics in the game in my opinion. Moving on is the Durango SRT, and that's also going to be Der Kaiser because it's the king of its niche. It is the best all-round American SUV. In fact, not even all-round, it's the best. It's just the best American SUV with, you know, all-surface tires that isn't off-road, dragster, or twisty, because it has a very low 0 to 60, but it also handles really well, so it's definitely Der Kaiser. Moving on now is the Ford Edge. This is going to be pernicious also. This is the car that I want. I do really want the Ford Edge. I mean, I have it. It was wishlisted for me, and I'm really happy to have it, but I don't think I'm ever going to use it. It is a very disappointing car. Once again, it needs a little more handling. For 69 RQ, give it 77. Just one more would make all that much of a difference. 61 MRA, 5.70 to 60. The 0 to 60 is the standout thing on the Ford Edge, but that isn't enough to save it to move it up, I would say, to any of the higher ranks. Moving on is the Ford F-150. That is going to be Der Kaiser, no question about it. If you don't have the Ram Rebel TRX, that is going to be your best option to use for the pickup meta, and also four-wheel drive off-road is a great car to use. Then we have the Fusion Sport. The Fusion Sport, I'm going to give it frequent provider as well, I would say. Four-wheel drive, standard tires, medium ground clearance. It is a slightly better version of the Acura RLX, but it's not that much better where it deserves to be in a different tier. So I would say that it's better than the Acura, but they're both frequent providers. So it's better than the Acura in its own rank, if that makes sense. Moving on now, Ford Mustang Gt4. Ooh, baby, that is going to be Der Kaiser, of course. I mean, look at this right here, right? This is the cool thing about this pack. You're getting the best American Epic standard tire. You're getting the best American Epic dragster. You're getting the best American Epic off-roader, the best American Epic all-surface tire, and the best American Epic twisty. This is a good pack if you want good American cars. So there you go. But I mean, then again, you can also just wait for an American Frontier pack and get 3 out of the 5. Moving on now is the Power Pack. The Power Pack rounds things off in the, I'm going to say, pernicious also category, because for 65 RQ, 44.40 to 60, 84 handling, that's okay, because the handling is what matters over here. The MRA on the Mustang, if you are interested, is 79.91, so it actually has better MRA than the Dodge Challenger Scat Pack, which is 1 RQ more, and it handles worse. Crazy stuff. And then the GMC, that is also going to be pernicious also. Now we have the 2 French epics with the Pujo E-Legend, which in my opinion is going to be Der Kaiser. If it isn't Der Kaiser, it's a very high daily driver, okay? But instead of giving it a very high daily driver, I'm actually going to give it Der Kaiser, because I use this thing a lot more than I expected I ever would. 4-wheel drive, a very low 0 to 60. Handling isn't the strongest thing in the world, but then again, you have to remember that it's medium, so suddenly 88 handling isn't even that bad. Or 87 handling, 87 handling actually. No, 88 handling, 87, depending on how you max it. But yeah, suddenly, knowing that it's medium ground clearance, that handling isn't that bad when you think about it. Really low 0 to 60. It's a 4-seater as well. Moving on now is the Renault Trezor. The Renault Trezor, I'm going to give it frequent provider. 4-wheel drive, the handling is okay, but that's about it. The top speed isn't very high. The 0 to 60 is very average, and it's like a bit of a Camaro almost. Very average car. Now we move on to legendaries, and for all the legendaries, they're all Der Kaiser. There isn't much to say. I already said this at the beginning of the video. You're getting yourself the best non-prized American medium, the best non-prized American twisty, the best non-prized American hybrid, which is the 4GT or all-rounder, and the best non-prized American, what was the last one? 4-wheel drive, which is the Acura NSX. And of course, when it comes to the French legendaries, they speak for themselves. You're getting a medium ground clearance 4-wheel drive Pujo, which handles quite well, and the 0 to 60 is low. And of course, the Bugatti Chiron Sport. Sorry, the Bugatti Chiron is the Bugatti Chiron. Like that alone would probably make a lot of people want to open the pack. So if you are a fan of American cars, but you also want to get like a Bugatti Chiron at the same time, this is actually a really good pack to open. I would say that it's pretty good. This pack is pretty good. A lot of Der Kaiser, right? A lot of top options. Not a lot of daily drivers, I would say, but a lot of bang average cars. It's a lot of those Camaros, some of those Fords. They're just really average. Not good, they're not bad. And when it comes to really hot garbage cars, there are only 4 cars that I can mention here, so it's not that bad. There are a bit of pernicious Ulcer cars, but as you can see over here, I would say that the positives outweigh the negatives. So should you open this pack? Go for it. I think that this isn't a bad pack to open if you are an American collector that also wants to get a Chiron at the same time, just because of what the Chiron means in the game, whatever that means to you. It's a pretty good pack at the end of the day. Am I going to open it? I might open one and hope that I pull a legendary, because outside of that, I don't really want anything else because I already have them. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you found this video helpful. I'm going to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too. Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac. Hold tight all night, cruise to Jacksonville
Atlantic.
Blonde hair, don't care, look like Leslie Brooks. Pin up girls everywhere with the drop dead look. Swing it side to side as we slow dance to the night. When I hold your